Hello, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Welcome to Gospel Minded, an outreach of Benedictus Psychological Services. Check out that website, benedictuspsych.com. Here on Gospel Minded, we spend a few minutes each week talking about psychology, emotions, mental health, and we reflect on how these important topics are related to the Sunday Gospel reading each week. I always point out this isn't meant to ever replace actually going to church or participating in counseling, therapy, spiritual direction, if you're involved with those sort of things. But like we know, things of our mind and our psychology so often go beautifully hand in hand with our spirituality. If this is your first time seeing this channel, welcome. If you are coming back, welcome back. Either way, I hope that you'll click the like button on this video and then subscribe to the channel so that you never miss an episode of Gospel Minded. So my friends, here we are, first week of Lent. How you doing? Are we at Easter yet? Some of you might be feeling that way. I'm holding in there. So far, so good. But man, the gospel reading today, and really all of the readings, just a tremendous powerhouse to encourage us as we make our way along this journey of Lent. So if you remember the last few weeks, we've been reading from Matthew chapter 5, which was the Sermon on the Mount. Interestingly, today, the gospel reading is from Matthew chapter 4. So before we even get to the Sermon on the Mount, that's what the gospel reading is picking up on today. And it reminds me of that series of commercials that the Lincoln Car Company did many years ago. Matthew McConaughey. One of my favorite ones was him. He was sitting at the wheel and he said, "If you want to take a step forward, you got to take a few steps back." And that's what this reminded me of. The last few weeks we've been talking about the Sermon on the Mount. We'd taken those steps. But now today, here we are in Lent. We got to take a step back. And we're going back to Matthew chapter 4. So this is the reading from today. It's Matthew 4, verses 1 to 11. And it says this: At that time, Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was hungry. Yeah, go figure. The tempter approached him and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become loaves of bread." He said to him in reply, "It is written, one does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes forth from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and made him stand on the parapet of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and with their hands they will support you, lest you dash your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "Again it is written, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test." Then the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their magnificence. And he said to him, "All these I shall give to you if you will prostrate yourself and worship me." At this, Jesus said to him, "Get away, Satan. It is written, the Lord your God shall you worship, and him alone shall you serve." The devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. Really just a fantastic gospel reading. And the continuity today between this gospel and the first reading, the psalm, and the second reading from St. Paul's letter to the Romans, I think it's just magnificent. So if you were at Mass today, that first reading was from Genesis. And in that first reading, it's this dialogue between the serpent and the woman. And he tricks her into partaking of this fruit, the tree of knowledge. She eats it, and then she gives it to her husband, Adam the man. Well, something similar is happening in this gospel reading. There's this dialogue between now the Lord and the tempter, the devil, the enemy. But what's the difference between the dialogue that we heard in Genesis and the dialogue we see here with Jesus? It's that Jesus resists the temptations, and he is not tricked or coerced into giving in to the tempter. But what is it that the devil is tempting Jesus with? This is what I think is important and relevant to what I want to talk about from a psychological perspective. He's tempting him with very natural things that you and I, my friends, can become tempted with, which become a big problem when we think about our spiritual health, our mental health, our relationships with others, our overall well-being. So first things first, what is it that the devil tempts Jesus with? Jesus has fasted, and the tempter approached him and said, "Command these stones become loaves of bread." You know, this is something that so many of us are tempted by and so often give into. These temptations towards our appetites, our appetitive desires. You know, that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. For some of us, the appetites that we find ourselves giving into may be food, as was the case in the gospel. The tempter tempts Jesus to turn the stones into loaves of bread. So maybe it's food for us, but maybe it's a lot of other things. Maybe it's our routine or our habits. Maybe it's our phone and we can't put our phone down. Maybe it's sexuality or addictions to sensory images or desires. There are so many appetitive things that tempt us and that attract us, and that it can be really difficult to say no to. And this is the first thing that the devil is tempting Jesus with, this stuff of the flesh. And Jesus resists it and says, one does not live on bread alone. What a powerful lesson that is for us. We are not meant to live by our appetites alone. So these physical, sensory, natural, in some cases, things that we desire, we're not meant to live by that alone. And so the program, if you will, of Lent, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, I think for this specific temptation, this idea of being tempted by things that are appealing to our appetitive nature, fasting is so useful and important. And that can be a fast from so many different things, from food, from eating between meals, from our phone, from, whatever. If we can deny our flesh, the things that we are attracted to, the things that we desire, so much better will we be psychologically, spiritually. The one who does not live by bread alone is surely on the right path. So that's the first temptation that the devil presents Jesus with, this stuff of the flesh. Then he takes him to the holy city and says, if you're the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it's written, he will command his angels and they will support you. And Jesus said, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test. So now it's almost like Satan is leading Jesus to the next level. Okay, so you resisted those temptations of the appetitive nature, those things of the flesh. Now he's showing him the holy city. Now we know that Jesus is a king. He is of the line of David, and that role of serving as a king is part of what he's born into this world to do. And Satan shows him, the holy city, almost a sense like he's trying to tempt the Lord with power. And how often do you and I find ourselves attracted to power, attracted to prestige? I tell you, I've seen it so often as a psychologist, where people get this idea: I want a position of authority. I want a job that is better. I want a raise. I want this or that. And at the root of it is sort of this desire for power and for the allure and the grandeur of it. And of itself, that's not bad. Power isn't bad. But when that becomes the focus, man, that creates a lot of problems for us in so many ways. Spiritually, psychologically, it causes problems in our relationship. And Jesus resists it. He says, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test. And so again, in the spirit of Lent, I think the best approach to try and resist this kind of temptation towards this power is almsgiving. You might refer to it as charity, doing good to others, serving others, giving of yourself. Maybe it means giving of your money, maybe it means giving of your time, maybe it means giving of some of your talent, but this idea of pouring oneself out for the sake of another person, the one that does so surely is on the right path. And then last but not least, and perhaps the most insidious of all, Satan leads Jesus to this very high mountain. So the highest point yet. He's tempted him with the appetitive stuff. He's tempted him with worldly power. And now he's saying, all these kingdoms of the world I shall give you in their magnificence if you will but prostrate yourself and worship me. And Jesus says to this, get away, Satan. Right. I'll tell you, at the end of the day, this is what I have noticed as such a big problem for so many people, and myself included. How often do we trade in the Lord our God for those things which are less than God? You know, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche had this saying, God is dead, and we've become in ourselves the Superman, our own God. And man, we see that playing out so often in our world today, maybe in our own lives. But the problem with that is that I am fallible. I'm full of foibles and flaws and characteristics which are not godlike. And at the end of the day, perhaps worst of all, I'm full of the disease of sinfulness. We all are. And we cannot save ourselves. And who do we worship? It ought to be the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And here Jesus rejects this temptation of Satan. Get away, he says. So too must we when we have these temptations to make ourselves our own God. So too must we say, get away, Satan, for we worship the Lord and Savior. And then this last line is, I think, the most important of this whole teaching. When we resist those temptations, angels came and ministered to Jesus. So too, when we are striving to do the right thing, we can depend on God to assist us, to be there with us, to accompany us and be for us, that angels too will come and minister to us. So it's a journey. I'm not saying that I've got it all right and I've got it all down, and I'm sure you don't either, but this is the purpose of Lent. We strive for it, we work toward it, and one day, God, we too will have angels ministering to us as we have walked through the narrow gate, and please God, we hear one day you say, well done, good and faithful servant. So, forward we march. 1 week of Lent down, and on we go on our journey towards Easter. I hope you liked today's video, and I hope that you'll come in next time on Gospel Minded. Between now and then, let's keep one another in prayer, and I'll see you then. I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. This is Gospel Minded. Take care.